and material, tempered, honed and disciplined by wars and battles that have both plagued and honored this country through the generations of its spirited and inspiring history. Of famous and feared warriors and leaders such as Shaka, Mzilikazi, Kahabi, Makoma, Mshweshwe and others. Many of these have forefathers who number among the great Boer names that challenged an ambitious British Empire. Many are the sons of those who fought tyranny and fascism in two great wars, and many again there are who came from elsewhere to make this land their home and willingly risk their lives for its defense. These men are at the forefront of the fight. They are the ones who pay liberty's claimed price of eternal vigilance, and for some, the supreme sacrifice. Their efforts provide a redoubtable fist of steel, which has the respect and indeed the admiration of friend and foe alike. And certainly those who underestimate the might of this South African Defence Force do so at their peril.
We haven't had any military incursion across our borders on a significant scale during the past few decades, and I think that in a sense indicates how strong we are, because if you're in the world of power, of violence, it's very much the law of the jungle that prevails, and it's as simple as if you are weak, you'll be attacked. If you're strong, people avoid you.
And when the law of the jungle prevails within the African context, the South African fighting machine is indeed invincible. For the enemy, through the years, South Africa's across-the-border operations into Angola were disastrous occasions. In 1975, in support of UNITA, South African forces sliced through that country virtually to the outskirts of Luanda, turning back only because of American duplicity. In the years that followed, whenever the need arose, our forces lashed out, and operations such as Reindeer, Skeptic, Protea, Askari, and most recently against SWAPO and its allies, resulted in bloody defeats and heavy losses. Recognition of SADF prowess and strength has come from far and wide. A Rockefeller Foundation survey has found that militarily South Africa is stronger than any opponent or coalition of opponents in Africa. In another assessment, the Hoover Institute has concluded South Africa's military power is enhanced by a substantial industrial and logistic infrastructure on a scale that has been attained nowhere else in Africa. International strategists whom we spoke to and who have first-hand knowledge of the SADF concur.
I find it a very tough, efficient defense force. Now, my prime interest in your defense force is its way that it's carrying on a counterinsurgency operation. Your defense force has done an admirable job on it, and I think the West can learn from it if it had ever get off its moral high horse and look at things realistically.
I would say that if it came to the final push, in fact, it came to a final conflict, a stand-up conventional war, there's no army on the African continent that could stand up to it for very, very long. They are equipped, motivated, and generally led so well that I don't see that there's any possible chance that they'll ever be beaten in a stand-up war.
In the African context, in my opinion, South Africa is clearly the single strongest sub-Saharan military power. There can be no question of this.
I have been very impressed by the efficiency of the South African Defence Force in many ways. In fact, too numerous to go into in such a short interview. I'm extremely impressed.
Oh, more than capable. I think that the way you have been structured and the equipment that you've got and the way you've gone about it more than demonstrates that you're right on top.
And of South African soldiers in particular, General Sir Walter Walker, former NATO Commander-in-Chief, has declared, "They are among the best in the world. Indeed, I doubt whether such strong men, high leadership and sheer professionalism can be surpassed by any other country in the world today." Certainly, Chief of the Army Kurt Liebenberg has no hesitation over what he regards as most special in the Army.
It must be our manpower component. I have the greatest admiration for the adaptability, the courage, and the ingenuity constantly being displayed by the average South African soldier, irrespective of his color. And in particular, by our young junior leaders. I think they are of the best caliber you can find, and they can compare very favorably indeed with any other junior leaders in the world today.
This country's war against terrorists, communists and their surrogates is not a white man's war. In the past decade in particular, the black and brown peoples have evinced a soaring enthusiasm to throw in their weight behind the fight against those forces within and from without who are intent on a violent takeover and a total transformation of the South African scene. Figures prove the point. Black and brown troops constitute some 40% of all soldiers deployed operationally within the Republic and along its borders. The Republic today provides less than half of the fighting soldiers in the Southwest African operational area, and 50% of these men from the Republic are black and brown. In support of statistics, there's sentiment and emotion, and both here at the predominantly Zulu 121 Battalion in Natal and at infantry school in the operational area, the identity and nature of the enemy provide no guessing game.
Well, the enemy is intimidating our country a lot because they are killing innocent people there. And they go and plant bombs in towns and so on.
I'm very fond in defending my country.
Against who?
Against the terrorists, especially Russia.
I regard as the enemy like these other organizations like ANC who are not, who are always against us. Like SWAPO and all, who we used to fight with in the borders.
Because I like to protect our country.
Against who?
Against our enemy, like ANC, all those, like SWAPO.
They mustn't interfere on our land and also to take over to our country.
At infantry school, the best of the best are brought together for the junior leaders training course. These are the military leaders of tomorrow, and in the inhospitable, vast and arid expanses of the operational area, they are being schooled in both the rugged requirements and the technical skills essential in modern warfare. From all walks of life and diverse areas, they enter another world where discipline, courage, fitness and reflexes are paramount, and where a buddy is a buddy, no matter who and where from. In this theatre of war, it is the mechanized units of the South African Defence Force that have been in the vanguard of the onslaught. And here the watchwords are speed, mobility, and a ferocious firepower. The attack at sunset and further into the night is a deadly serious business. Increasingly, South African offensives are being launched under cover of night, but the darkness itself can be both friend and foe, depending on the skills of the night fighters. enemy has no shortage of Soviet weaponry, and when the South African armour and men launch themselves at their targets, the challenge is to run the gauntlet of automatic weapons fire, shrapnel, minefields and booby traps with a minimum loss of life. Someone once wrote that in every war they kill you in a new way. This is transformed from the cynical to the serious and sometimes quite sensational when the spotlight is thrown on the lineup of some of the Army's locally designed and built weaponry. The Rattle is the Army's Jock of the Bushveld, tough as nails and regarded with utmost respect and affection by those who depend upon it for their very lives.
Left 10 o'clock. Behind bush. 5 single shots on the piercing. Fire now. Okay, correction. Correction. Up 300. Up 300. Fire now. Firing now.
The Rattle ranks among the most highly and widely acclaimed of the Arms Corps weapons. Combat tested and proven on numerous occasions, there are several models of this versatile infantry fighting vehicle. One of the latest innovations is the Rattle 81, which has provided a deadly mobility to the 81mm mortars. Also having passed with flying colours tests in hammering the enemy are the Rattles 20, 60 and 90. Specially designed for South African conditions, they ride roughshod over the African terrain. An astonishing cross-country ability, according to Jane's military review.
Rattle forces are definitely bulkhead and the spearhead of any conventional attack. The combination of high firepower, maneuverability, mobility and armor protection for the troops make it a definite component for success.
And it was a mortal hand and eye that framed this fearful symmetry. Based on the Centurion, the redesigned and rebuilt Oliphant tank is faster, more powerful, maneuverable, has a greater range and a far more destructive weapon system than its famous ancestor. Equally efficient at firing its 105mm gun at speed or stationary, the Oliphant contributes to a most credible armoured offensive capability. For the enemy, these mighty monsters, charging, churning, machine guns chattering and guns booming, must provide a most terrifying sight indeed. The G5 gun is a potent long-distance killer, saving the lives of our people, while many kilometers away the enemy is being torn to shreds. With a range of some 40 kilometers and a suitable variety of projectiles and fusers, the G5 is capable of pulverizing the most determined of defenses. An efficient crew can deploy the gun ready for action in a mere 2.5 minutes, and a single gun is capable of hurtling 3 projectiles a minute at a given target. For the men behind the G5s, working the weapon is a rewarding but trying task.
Oh, it's a tremendous bang. I sit in the tubula and the whole tubula just shakes when the bang goes off.
En hoe voel het as hy afgaan?
Dis iets, jy kan nie vir iemand verduidelik nie, want dis skok en stof en die rook is baie lekker.
The explosion, the force that it gives off is tremendous.
Ek hoor, ek kan dit nie hou nie. Dit is 'n geweldige druk wat jy moet ondergaan.
Yes, Rex. So yes, the gun we were training previously, the G2. That wasn't as bad as the G5. This has got a tremendous blow on you.
On the receiving end, the effect is devastating. And according to Battery Commander Major Theo Wilkin, it is not only the killing and maiming that tears the opposition to shreds, but equally horrifying is the paralyzing effects of high explosive shock waves.
You totally immobilize the target and you get total neutralization of the target while the engagement is going on and for a short while after that as well.
description of the G5 given by Jane's Military Review reads, "As good as anything in the Western world, and in some respects even better." The self-propelled G6 is lauded in a 1987 edition of Jane's Defence Weekly as one of the best artillery systems in production. As speedy, mobile and maneuverable as the Rattle, this vehicle can move with the mechanized forces over and into any terrain, thereby boosting all the good qualities of the G5 with maximum mobility. As the G6 halts to fire, outriggers are pushed down to stabilize the vehicle and save the suspension. And 60 seconds after stopping, the first projectile is blasted on its way. Also figuring prominently in Arms Corps' artillery arsenal is the Valkyrie 127 multiple rocket launcher, the performance of which has relegated Russia's Stalin organ to something of sound and fury, but signifying nothing. With a range extending from 7,500 meters to 23 kilometers, this MRL's high fragmentation capacity provides a killing area of some 1,500 meters when used against troops who are in the open, in shallow trenches or soft-skin vehicles. No, it is not a Valkyrie striking a vehicle. It is a demonstration of a non-mine-proofed vehicle detonating a landmine, and a consequent action taken by the SADF Medical Corps, assisted by the Air Force. When it comes to expertise and rapid treatment of the wounded, the SADF is hard to beat. Even in the heat of battle, there is no shirking the job. The medics immediately take over full responsibility for a wounded soldier and carry out all necessary tasks, allowing the fighting men to get along with their job. Surgeon General Nicol Nibout explains.
Our efficiency, I think, is improving all the time. Seeing that we have been busy now for more than a decade with this kind of warfare we are busy with. The reason for that is that our organization has been adapted to fit in with our needs. The manpower available, the expertise, and I think most important, the practical experience we've gained in the last number of years. I think it rates very highly on a number of priorities for morale, is the knowledge any one of our troopies has insofar that if it does get injured or gets wounded, medical help will be immediately available, it will be taken care of in full, and everything that is necessary will and can be done. This is also passed down over the last number of years from one intake to another, and I think that's one of the reasons why the morale of the South African Defence Force personnel generally are so high, even under combat conditions.
There are many things that need doing prior to a battle ahead. Perhaps reading for the 10th time a letter from a loved one in the States. Perhaps some sustenance, proving that a troopie never bites off more than he can chew. And then all those preparations, so necessary for that which lies ahead. For the men of faith, these are precious and hallowed moments. For the Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth. Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flieth by day.
ken elkeen by die naam en daarom vra ons vir u. Neem hulle in u hand.
Ons wil wen. Nie ek nie, ons wil wen. Jy maak 'n bydrae. Ek sal die leiding gee. Jy sal die vyand dood. Ek sal vir jou sê hoe om dit te doen. Jy en ek is 'n span en ons is 'n wenspan.
If you do not command the air, you cannot win a war. So you can exist without air, but you cannot win. So the main role of the Air Force is then to provide that favorable air situation which allows one to win a war.
That statement by Chief of the Air Force, General Dennis Earp, slots the Air Force into South Africa's military machine. The Air Force consists mainly of volunteers, and because of the effects of the arms embargo, top quality training is regarded as of paramount importance, so that the best can be achieved with available machines and weaponry. It costs an astronomical 2 million rand to train a single Mirage pilot. But at the end of it all, these men know what they are doing.
I do think that the enemy have increased reasonably considerably in the technological field. We do have a bit of a problem here, but there are ways and means, and if we combine once again the training that we do have, we do still feel confident that we're capable of doing the job given to us.
I'd rate it in the top 10 air forces in the world in both air defense and ground support. I've flown with them on several occasions. They're extremely professional. They know what they're doing. They could fit in with most of the European air forces quite easily. They're very, very good, very professional.
If we must compare the South African Air Force with the air forces of the world, I would say that we are probably in the top 5. But again, not if we're talking size of force. We can't compete with the United States, obviously. But quality-wise, and bearing in mind that an Air Force isn't only aeroplanes and only people, it's a total system, I think we're still up in the top 5. We may even be among the top 3.
The locally made Impala is today familiar in our skies. Equipped with improved systems and efficient weaponry, it provides an excellent air cover given the right circumstances. Bearing the name of Africa's swift and agile cheetah, this versatile aircraft ranks among Arms Corps' most ambitious and technologically complex success stories. Only recently formally commissioned for operations, this aircraft, an upgrading of the Mirage 3, heralds a new era of self-sufficiency and heightened operational capability for the Air Force. With advanced electronic systems housed in its gracefully elongated nose, this jet fighter provides a supersonic platform for a deadly assortment of South African-produced weapons. They include the revolutionary Kukri missile system, linked to a built-in helmet sight. the CB-470 cluster bomb, the Mark 82 bomb, and an upgraded 30mm cannon. Taken in conjunction with our pilots' flying skills, the Air Force is confident that the Cheetah is more than a match for anything they may encounter in the southern African skies. British Defence correspondent Terry Gander outlines the African problem.
A lot of the border states, I notice, are busy rearming themselves with more modern equipment. But it isn't going to do them a great deal of good in many cases, because having the equipment and just using it once or twice on parades is great. What really matters is day in, day out, maintenance, servicing, looking after, and keeping the standard of training up. And this is where many of the African nations at the moment are sadly lacking. It's very well having the latest MiGs or the latest this, that, or the other aircraft, the latest flashing things that really look good on the newsreels. What really matters is the day-to-day maintenance and looking after that equipment. And this is where so many African nations seem to fall down. This is where the South Africans do score, because they do look after their equipment. They do design it to be exactly right for their situation, and they have the skills and techniques to be able to do it for quite some time to come.
The Pumas, indispensable appendages of the Army, are the workhorses of the air. Their tasks include rapid troop deployment, air-hopping trackers in pursuit of fleeing terrorists. They fly in fuel, rations, water and weapons. Troops in tight spots are picked up and flown to safety. The wounded and ill are cassevaced at all times, from all places, often under perilous conditions. For some time now, the arms embargo has jeopardized South Africa's helicopter capability. But at an international air show in Chile recently, Armscorps stole the limelight with its locally developed Alpha XH-1 combat helicopter. Described by Jane's Defence Weekly as a striking feature of the show, this tandem helicopter gunship meets the requirements of one of the most important facets of modern warfare. Also recently unveiled at the Atlas Aircraft Corporation was the locally developed XTP-1 attack helicopter. With a Puma as the basic design, this helicopter shows major modifications and structural changes, enhancing its striking power and stability. Numbering among the often unsung heroes of the South African military machine are those involved in air transport. Men and equipment, cargo of all kinds, flown in where they are most needed, and sometimes urgently so.
Okay, the drop height is 1,000 feet IJL. Our runway heading will be 348 degrees magnetic. And that's 30 paratroopers aside and 2 drops.
The dropping of paratroopers and their equipment provides another striking example of the interdependence of the various branches of the Defence Force. The flying and navigational skills of the crews of the air transport planes are legend. Dark or light, bad weather or good, remote places must be reached, often under dangerous conditions and with on-the-spot timing. For these mainly citizen force paratroopers, it's an exercise today. But tomorrow, and quite suddenly, the unknown, unexpected, the difficult and the dangerous could become a stark reality.
Certainly there are a couple of navies in Africa which in terms of numbers are about parity with us. But quality, there is no comparison whatever. And that quality is extremely important in a navy. A navy is a high-tech business. And if your weapon systems don't work, or not 100%, then you might as well not have them. And this is our big advantage, and the advantage we've got to hang on to is quality people. And as a result, we have an extremely professional Navy, I believe as professional as the British or the American navies, and we can face anything that Africa can throw at us, easily.
A military strategist once wrote, "One does not fight with men against material. It is with material served by men that one makes war." And in many ways, this encapsulates the situation confronting the South African Navy, crippled as a protector of the vital Cape Sea route because of the arms embargo. But nevertheless, having risen bravely and competently to the challenge of meeting the naval requirements of this country's extensive shoreline. Perhaps modest in size, the South African Navy has nevertheless achieved a state of self-sufficiency and efficiency which ensure that any attack on that which it protects is either doomed to fail or will result in severe enemy losses. For the past 10 years, the backbone of the South African Navy's surface forces has been the strike craft. Relatively small in size, this ship nevertheless packs a powerful punch. The 9 ships of the strike craft flotilla operate under the motto, "The last to fire is the first to die," and their speed, maneuverability, and fearful weapon system provide them with a strike-first capability difficult to outdo. Locally built, the overriding feature of the strike craft is its South African-produced Skorpion missiles, which provide the ship with its awesome impact, even when pitted against a much larger warship. The launch of a missile is the culmination of complex technological procedures involving detection, classification, and engagement. Here, speed and accuracy are paramount, and in the reddish glow of the ops room, the tension of concentration prevails.
Surface blind, red 30, range 150. Yes, your target. Action on missile, selected. Go over.
In addition to the missiles, a strike craft has on deck 2 20mm guns, 2 Brownings, plus 2 formidable 76mm guns. This simulated air attack calls for Combat State 1. Within seconds, the guns are chattering and booming, and the attacking planes face a barrage of metal hurtling out of stabilized weapons, some supported by the radar-assisted fire control unit.
Our strategy thus far has been to retain a qualitative advantage over our potential enemies and to ensure that the highest level of realistic combat training is maintained at all times by our surface combat forces. We have ensured that this high state of readiness is visible at all times in order to ensure deterrence. Remember that we would operate as far as possible in conjunction with our submarines, which are excellent platforms indeed. As far as some sort of intervention by other forces is concerned, it's a little more difficult to quantify. Obviously, we have our limitations, but what we have, and here I include the combination of submarines, maritime strike aircraft, and our strike craft, which would be essential in such a scenario, I believe that not many countries could make a realistic assessment of their chances and find that they can afford to take the risk of coming to our home ground, taking us on, and losing their money.
They run silent, they run deep. And in the realm of subsurface warfare, this country's 3 Daphne-class submarines remain a significant deterrent. These vessels have been with the fleet since the early 1970s, but their defense systems are constantly being updated. Underwater sonar identification is an exacting and important task. Because of unpredictable and severe temperature gradients off the Cape Coast, the detection of lurking submarines is difficult for surface sonars, with the result that South Africa's offshore waters have been dubbed a submariner's paradise. Armed with 12 torpedoes and having a range of some 8,000 kilometers, these hunters and killers of the deep dare not be discounted by an enemy force. And if speculation that South Africa is well on the way to building her own submarines is incorrect, then certainly it's true to say that this country is giving that possibility serious thought. Below waters, the submarines. Skimming the surface, the nippy strike craft. But the eye in the sky is provided by the Albatross. Traditionally the Navy's buddies, Southern Air Command runs the coastal patrol squadrons, and all describe working relationships as excellent. Most recent star in the naval firmament is the 12,500-ton SAS Drakensberg, the biggest and most technologically advanced ship yet designed and built in South Africa. Initially assisting and eventually destined to replace the aging SAS Tafelberg replenishment vessel, the Drakensberg has become a valuable addition to the Navy. It enhances surveillance and rescue capabilities, and in the service of operational vessels, it increases their efficiency. The golden thread intertwined through South Africa's remarkable defense capabilities is the foresight, ingenuity and determination of all those involved in overcoming the arms embargo and thereby making this country self-sufficient in self-defense. Referring to the history of the arms embargo and the establishment of Arms Corps, the prestigious magazine Defense Update International writes, "The country's entire industrial and research resources were mobilized to enable Arms Corps to become the equal of the United States and Sweden in its understanding of detonics, the science of explosives and explosions, develop world-leading frequency-hopping radio systems, and, among other achievements, produce what are regarded as the world's most effective mine-proof vehicles." An amazing testimonial, underlined by other foreign but in-the-know military strategists.
Aircraft industry, Atlas is improving in leaps and bounds. They're doing things now which wouldn't have been possible 10 years ago. I think the embargo caused the upsurge in Arms Corps and their growth.
It's probably a perverse way of putting it, but it seems to have done you a lot of good in as much as it's turned you back on yourselves. You've made through your own effort and your own energy and your own innovation some splendid equipment that's as good as any, and in most cases is the best in the world. And I think that's a credit to, as I say, to the ingenuity of your people.
And the equipment that I and General Butler saw was of the very highest quality, and some of it quite unique.
What is it, Mr. Garrett, that really impressed you?
The most? The Rathole armoured car or troop carrier, and the radio equipment. I think your high-grade radio equipment is outstanding.
Again, our defense people could look at some of the equipment that the South Africans have and probably buy it from them at a heck of a lot cheaper price than we're paying for ours, and be getting a very good, if not better, product than we're getting. So I'm very impressed.
Somewhere, while we are safely at work or play or in pensive mood, someone is out there, out at the front, ensuring that we, involved in the preparatory, pleasurable and profitable pursuits of life, are able to do so. Undisturbed, confident and secure, the agonies of war and the sweat of suffering, far removed from that which is our daily lives. It is to those someones out there somewhere that this documentary is dedicated.
Thank you.